is this Clark, this interstellar comet.
Right? I mean,
yeah, big news.
I don't see Clark.
Oh, maybe he's still sleeping.
Dad.
Some of Clark's larger fragments are now expected to enter our atmosphere.
That's right, and now those are just...
What are they saying?
More of the same.
I bet you it's gonna make a heck of a show.
Whoa. Where are they going?
I don't know. When the first chunk is about to hit.
Hit?
Only part of it. It's going in the ocean.
Would you look at that?
Wait, where's the explosion?
We now are getting word that the fragment has hit Central Florida.
Oh my God.
Wait, are some more pieces gonna hit?
Come on, let's go.
But the sky's on fire.
2 days. They got it all wrong. There's a ton of fragments. Planet killers.
Space agencies are predicting an extinction level event.
We're gonna be together, all right, kiddo? We're just trying to get to safety.
They've been tracking the military flights to bunkers in Greenland.
It's our only chance.
Move back! Perimeter breach. Perimeter breach. Runway 33. Drop your weapons down!
Allison! Nathan! Allison!
Where's Dad?
We'll find him. It's okay.
Clark's largest fragment will hit in less than 24 hours.
I swear, I'm gonna get my family into that bunker. I know you will, son.
If you are hearing this broadcast, seek shelter immediately.
Hello there. Greenland is a brand new action movie, disaster movie, directed by Roman War, I'm just checking the name there, and starring Gerard, Butler and Morenna Baccarin. It's an end-of-the-world apocalyptic thriller. No, wait. Don't say, oh my God, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. That's the last thing I want to watch, because this one really is worth your time. We've had a lot of these disaster movies, end-of-the-world apocalyptic things over the last few years. In fact, going back to the 70s, I think, really, when disaster movies started off with things like Earthquake and Towering Inferno and the Poseidon Adventure, when the stakes have got higher and higher over the decades. I think the films went out of fashion a little bit, but they came back with the likes of Armageddon and Deep Impact, and more recently things like 2012, Geostorm, and The Day After Tomorrow. A lot of those films are fairly stupid and depend on bringing you in with spectacular special effects and the world being torn apart or blasted apart by aliens, in the case of things like Independence Day. And the attraction seems to be watching places that we know, White House, for example, blowing up and New York being destroyed or drowned, which is great. The special effects, they can do all that sort of stuff, but where's the human interest? Where is the human interest? Where are the people that we care about? They're in Greenland, which is why I think, even though you may be thinking I'm in the middle of a global pandemic, I want to see something a bit more uplifting. I think Greenland is uplifting in a way because it's about the survival of the human spirit, when all about you is gone to shit, basically, how humanity can survive and endure, and the spirit of family and people coming together. This is a terrific film, which obviously was going to get a cinema release, but because of the pandemic, it's gone straight to streaming. I'd like to see it on the big screen, because even though it's not a big bang crash film, it's got a big cinematic scale to it, and it does deliver the money shots when it needs to. Although as I say, it's about people rather than special effects and so on. Basically, the core story is Gerard Butler, who I have to say I've never been a particular fan of. He plays a chap called John Garrity, who is a structural engineer. He's estranged from his wife. They live in Atlanta in Georgia. He's estranged from his wife for reasons that we don't discover until later on in the film. And the family is still sort of close, but they're apart, if you see what I mean. He goes to the family home. There's going to be a party for their young son, Nathan, who's suffering from diabetes. So there's a sort of a slightly fractious relationship between him and Alison, who's played by Morenna Baccarin, who of course we know from Firefly and Homeland, and of course more recently in Deadpool. So they come together to have this party. All the neighbours come round, and John goes off to the local store to get some provisions, and he receives a curious message from Homeland Security, telling him to head to a pre-selected destination. Now, at the same time all this is happening, a comet called the Clark Comet is in our galaxy. It's on its way to Earth, but the public are told that it's not going to cause any significant damage, it's just going to skim the planet. However, when John returns home with the family and their neighbours and friends, they discover that's not quite the case, as it appears that the comet is disintegrating in the atmosphere and huge chunks of it are heading towards the Earth. And they watched appalled as, not too much of a spoiler, but Florida is wiped out on their TV screens by a fragment of the comet which lands and devastates the area. Obviously the balloon goes up, as it were. John gets another message telling him to head to this pre-selected destination. Panic ensues when they discover that there's an extinction level event due when a large part of the comet strikes Europe in a few days' time. John realises that because of his profession, he's an engineer, he's going to be of use in whatever world is left when this has all happened. So he gathers up his family, they head to the airport where they hope to be evacuated to this place of safety. However, of course, things don't go too well. I won't go too much into the spoilers about the actual storyline. Suffice to say that when they get to the airport, things don't go well. They realise that they've left Nathan's diabetic medicine in the car. John goes back to get it and he's immediately separated from Alice and he can't get back to be reunited with them. And the core of the film is about these characters and their struggle to survive and their struggle to be reunited and the things they have to do. What I like about this film, we're used to seeing Gerard Butler as this sort of all-action, two-fisted action hero. In this he's not. He's just a blue-collar worker who's trying to do his best for the family that he loves, despite the fact that they've sort of split up. They endure some heart-rending and nerve-biting dramas when they're separated. John finds himself having to do some terrible things, and Alison is put in a terrible position when something awful and terrible happens to her and it looks as if her whole life has fallen apart. You can gather from what I'm saying about the film that it's not all about the spectacle. There are moments of spectacle. There's a great moment where a line of traffic is ravaged by chunks of burning molten meteorite that come crashing out of the sky. There are some big money shots, but it's not about the spectacle. A lot of the spectacle happens off screen, and what the film actually does, it concentrates on building up a feeling of dread and unease, because you know something awful is going to happen to the human race. You see the effect it has on people, the panic, the desperation, the ruthlessness even. So even as we're rooting for John and his family, we're seeing the darker side of people as they do terrible things to try and survive. So I think it depicts a realistic version of, unfortunately, what would happen in this sort of situation. I think in the pandemic we've seen the best and worst of human nature, and I think that Greenland just accentuates that and shows us, you know, what it would be like if things were 10 times worse, 20 times worse, that the world is actually going to end. I think the film possibly loses its way in the last act when it starts to drift a little bit more into disaster movie territory and starts to get a little bit more fanciful. But there's a hopeful sort of ending. Again, I won't spoil it too much, but I think if you're in two minds about watching this because you think too soon, because we're still in the middle of a chaotic time, I would say go in because it's a human drama, and that's what differentiates it from so many of the films that have come before, especially those more recent Michael Bay, Roland Emmerich, things which are all about bang and flash and gusto and that sort of America sort of, yeah. Even though it's an American film, obviously it's set in America, it's human. It's a human story, and I think you find yourself caring about the characters. You want them to be reunited. When dreadful and truly terrible things happen, you're with them because you're invested. The script does enough to make you invest in them and care about them, and that's something I don't think you get in films like 2012 and The Day After Tomorrow, where the characters are pretty much ciphers and they're in awe of the special effects rather than their own lives and their characters. So I highly recommend Greenland. Obviously, as I say, you'll have reservations because it might not seem that it's the time to watch a film like that. But if you do invest the time, you will find yourself drawn into... It's a chilling story. It's disturbing because of the realism of it. It makes it feel as if it's real. The performances are great. As I say, the script is very, very good, very subtle. And it just carries you along. And I say, I really appreciated that sense of escalating apprehension that something terrible is happening, that these people are just caught up in and they're just trying to stay alive. That's Greenland. Is available now on Amazon Prime. I'm going to give it 9 big World of Stuff marks out of 10 and recommend you check it out now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
If you are hearing this broadcast, seek shelter immediately.
What is it? What's going on?
If you are hearing this broadcast, seek shelter
John, go!
immediately. Seek shelter immediately.
Hang on, Nathan.